So this is that reminder as I begin these shadow marks. And it's, whenever possible, it's best to start with the shadows, and that's where I'm going to begin right now. In my center of interest, I'm going to begin with a harder pastel so that I'm not applying as much pigment as would come off in a softer pastel. This happens to be a Create a Color, which is a pastel brand that I really like. It's a good hard stick that has very permanent colors that are very nice and light fast. The sticks don't tend to crumble, and because they're harder sticks, I can really control the volume of pastel that comes off. So I'm not filling up these dark areas with an awful lot of pastel as I begin a couple of these marks. Notice that I'm also working very close to what the underpainting has given me right now. So you're going to see, as this painting unfolds, a lot of what I call bridging. So what I'm doing here is, so let's say, for instance, I had to get a lot lighter in that spot. Right there I decide, wow, that underpainting was way too dark. I need to get a lot lighter. I need to get, and this is just a for instance, this light in that area. I wouldn't place this pastel right there, right now. What I would do instead is go considerably darker, but lighter than that area. See, I would begin here and then progress possibly to something that's closer in value to this, and then end in the lighter pastel on top of it. So that's really what I mean by this bridging that you'll hear me talking about as I'm painting on this painting, and you'll see it happening. When I start approaching this underpainting in the solve part, what I'm doing is tiptoeing into the scene. I'm taking what's there, even if it needs to end up being radically different, and beginning close to that side of the bridge, and then incrementally building myself over to where I need to be, my destination on the other side of the bridge. So that's the concept of bridging. So even though this color is a little more violet, it's a dark violet tone, it's not real bright, but it's a little bit of a dusty violet tone. And you can hear that it's a harder stick right now because you can actually hear it against the gritty surface that's there. And I'm applying things thinly, and I encourage you to do that, to use a nice tactile pressure, practice on things that are non-objective, doing all of your work and learning to use pastels, learning to do underpaintings, learning to draw on things. If you're always doing those with something really precious in front of you, something that you really want to turn out, then you're not going to learn as much. So some of these even techniques of applying the pastel, bridging onto a surface, definitely some of the underpainting techniques, you want to give yourself the ability to sometimes work on a scrap or work on something that's not going to be your masterpiece. That way, if it does turn out, that's great, but it wasn't your intention, so you'll definitely take more chances because you haven't made it precious. But these marks and these colors that I'm putting on right now are not leaping out to you. And some strokes as the painting progresses will. Right now I'm staying really close in value. The colors, like I said, a little bit more violet. So you're going to get that hint. There's a hint of a reddish violet now sitting on top of this warm, kind of dull brown underpainting. I'm setting some shadow shapes. I like to also share with you that I think your paintings, and especially if you work with an underpainting, should incrementally, it's a great word in this approach, incrementally, gradually tiptoe towards where you want to be. Don't feel like you've got to resolve one section of the painting and then move to that other section so that you're doing this quilt work. Just incrementally slip into the painting quietly. Allow your values to be close in the beginning. Your colors don't have to be a big jump. Respond to that underpainting and then just progressively work towards what you want. If you really like the effect of a serendipity underpainting, then you want to acquire this gradual, somewhat tentative response to what's there. We can always add more. Pastel's just waiting for us. It's not drying. If I had to step away right now, I could and come back to this at any point. Before my demise, I could come back to this painting no matter how old it is, and it would still quietly be waiting for me to come back and to deal with it. So I've basically set a shadow, which doesn't look that dark. But if I take this stick and I actually hold it back over to that chart that I was talking about, you'll notice that it resides very close to that value 3 range. It's darker than 4 and 5, and it's really lighter than my darkest darks down at the bottom. So I'm staying true to what I'm asking you to do as well. When possible, it's good to stick with one tone and place just a little bit of it in a few areas of your painting. Now obviously, as I've stated, as things go back into this scene, they're going to get cooler in a minute, and I'm going to adjust that. I'll make those subtle adjustments to what it is I'm doing. But right now, since I have this tone, if I can repeat a little bit of it in those similar valued areas, I'm going to get a sense of harmony within my painting. It's not going to be completely disjointed.